Yo, what is up everybody, it's Jay Great here and welcome back to another video here today. And today we got yet another video by 6, and as you can tell the title of this is Hinata versus Sakura, the real winner. So folks, this particular matchup has been discussed within the Naruto fandom for as long as the Naruto verse has been around, right? It makes sense narratively. I mean, they are arguably the two most significant female characters in the entire timeline, and they both have their own unique abilities, right? Hinata has a Byakugan, the gentle fist, the defensive capability of the Hyuga, and on the flip side we have Sakura, right, who is at this point probably superior to Tsunade in terms of strength, chakra control, etc. Has immense strength, obviously is heralded for her medical ninjutsu, and they are compared, I would say, regularly within the Naruto fandom. But in my assessment before coming into this video, Hinata just lacks feats to concretely deduce that she could compete with Sakura. I would say in part 1, she probably beat Sakura in the Chunin exams, right? She was able to at least keep up with Neji at the end of their battle when she was mentally amped by Naruto, and Sakura was complete fodder in the Chunin exams. After that, she really doesn't have any feats at all, and Sakura's feats just keep getting more and more impressive, right? From beating Sasori, which is of course contentious, but still a feat. Then clipping Kaguya, War Arc self when she's destroying Tento clones, and then we have her in Boruto where she's rationally much stronger than she was in the War Arc, just from her getting older, her having her seal. It only makes sense that she would most likely beat Hinata now, right? Because Hinata just lacks the feats and or statements, at least to my knowledge, that she has greatly improved in her caliber as a shinobi. So that would be my take on it before heading into this video. But I'm very intrigued to see what 6 has to say about this one here today. But before we begin, anyways, really appreciate it. Hit that like button, turn on bell notifications to stay updated with yours truly. And if you're new and you enjoy, man, you mess with the kid, make sure to hit that sub button, because once you do, become part of the family forever. Let's not waste any more time, screen. Let's see what 6 says here today.
So, look, I know I said I was virtually done with versus battles on stream a while ago, and then I kind of kept putting them out, but I have good reasons, so don't call me a liar. I was paid to do 2 of them, and the other one was kind of just like a filler video, but this one is because I keep hearing about it on Twitter every day. There's a new
Makes sense.
Hinata versus Sakura debate. Whether it's over their characters or who would win in the fight, it's a lot of what people up there talk about nowadays. This debate isn't new at all. It just got sparked back up recently again, probably due to the fact that Hinata was released as a skin in Fortnite or something like that. I don't know. But today I'm going to go over the versus battle, and I'm not going to be going into YouTuber mode on this one. I'm going to be entering this one on full edgelord mode. Mostly because I think this fight is really stupid, but also because these two characters do not get a lot of fighting time in the manga. So for the discussion, we're going to split it up into 3 main parts that everyone seems to care about. The first one being the 4th Great Ninja War,
Okay.
Naruto the Last for the second one, and then the third one, the Boruto era, when they're both adults. I'm not going to be covering any novel content, mostly because I don't think any of the novels are canon, and that's probably going to be the first thing I talk about when I get into the actual scaling section of the video, because a lot of people like to use Sakura's novels to hype her up because she fought a 9-intelligent Cherokee, bro. It doesn't matter. Anyway, moving on to the part of the video that everyone came here for, Hinata versus Sakura. Oh, and like and subscribe, blah, 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 blah. Before I get into character versions, speed scaling, and all of that, I want to talk about things I think should apply universally to all the versions I presented earlier of each character. In other words, we'll just talk about abilities first. Number 1, Hinata has the Gentle Fist. This makes any durability scaling arguments for Sakura super irrelevant. The Gentle Fist bypasses your durability by attacking you on the inside and messing with your organs, which Kakashi says you cannot train. The only person we've seen have somewhat of an immunity to this is Kiyomaru during his fight with Neji, due to a special property of his body of his own, that he can spit out a substance that hardens when it comes into contact with oxygen, and this substance isn't made of chakra, seeing as Neji states that chakra built substances stand no chance against the Gentle Fist, which Kiyomaru then takes note of when making his plan to attack Neji at a long range, since he believes doing so at a close range would cause him to unalive himself. Sakura has no such ability and should therefore be vulnerable to a Gentle Fist assault from Hinata, if Hinata is fast enough to hit her, of course. Hinata also at every point mentioned has access to the 64 palms technique, which can leave you paralyzed due to shutting down your chakra flow. Sakura's entire moveset is based around chakra amp strength and whatnot, so if Hinata successfully lands this on her, she's out for the count and she has no nine tails or anything to bring her back up, so she would be done for. Hinata also has the Byakugan, so any attacks coming from behind, she should be able to see coming. Though admittedly, most of the other Byakugan abilities are going to be completely irrelevant against Sakura, such as the ability to see how much chakra someone has left. Hinata is just straight up not winning in a battle of stamina with Sakura, who has healing, massive amounts of chakra, and even more in a spare tank in the form of the Byakugo seal on her forehead. That is, unless Hinata is able to land some strikes on Sakura with the Gentle Step Twin Lion Fist. This is the move she used on Pain, and it didn't really do anything there, but the data book describes this ability as a pretty busted one. It says that this is a high level of Gentle Fist technique, and that the lines in Hinata's hands will drain the chakra network of those it touches, and it also implies the Byakugan increases Hinata's chakra control, which I didn't know, stating that it will fail at the slightest mistake in chakra control, which is why the Byakugan is required for this, and it says that she can use this in tandem with her 64 palms. That should be it for all of Hinata's relevant abilities, so we can move on to Sakura. Honestly, most of Sakura's moveset is extremely straightforward. Actually, no, all of her moveset is extremely straightforward. She just punches and kicks really hard and can heal people and herself. But there are things about her that still need to be addressed. For one, does adult Sakura have 13 years of chakra stored into her forehead? And the short answer is no, she doesn't. The explanation, the Byakugo seal is not a seal you constantly pump chakra into once it's completed. You do that until it forms, then you can stop and start using your own chakra normally. So for the entirety of Shippuden prior to the war arc, Sakura was basically nerfed, is what I'm trying to say. If you look at the scene where she first gets her Byakugo seal, you can see her having an inner monologue about not being able to catch up to Naruto and Sasuke. Then her seal forms and she says, "I'm finally at full capacity and can unleash it." Then, without even turning on the Byakugan, she starts nuking the battlefield full of Jubi clones by herself with just punches. So no, Sakura did not sit around for 13 years just charging up chakra. But I'm going to talk about this more later on. I didn't want to crowd this specific section of the video too much. Moving into the novels being canon or not, like I mentioned earlier, I had to do some sort of thinking when it came to this, and the justification for the novels being a canon continuation of the story is really just not there in any form. We even have direct confirmation from one of the novel writers that their story is just a spin-off and the original manga is the true story. I don't want to butcher the name, so I'll just make sure everyone can see the tweet on screen. And it reads, "It's sure that the original comic is one and only truth. Since Naruto is the masterpiece, lots of spin-off works are made. My story is just one of them and you have lots of options. I hope you enjoy the Naruto world in your comfortable way." This obviously doesn't outright say the novels they wrote aren't canon, but it definitely implies it when saying the original comic is the one and only truth. This author, for anyone who's wondering, wrote Sasuke Shinden, the teacher star pupil, Kakashi Retsuden, the Sixth Hokage and the Failure Boy, Sasuke Retsuden, the Uchiha Descendants and the Heavenly Stardust, and Naruto Retsuden, Naruto Uzumaki and the Spiral Destiny. The Sakura novel isn't written by Kishimoto at all, just like the rest of these novels, so why accept them as canon? The other argument I see for the novels being canon is on some random timeline in Japanese magazines, but this doesn't make them canon at all. All the magazine is showing you is when the novels would take place in the timeline, not that they are actually canon to that timeline. And even if you think they are showing you what is canon to that timeline, you could never prove it. So we'd be stuck in this weird neutral limbo of, I don't know if these novels are canon. So I'm not going to accept them as canon until it's either confirmed that they are, or a substantial argument for them being canon is presented. I also want to quickly mention that Hinata might have a little bit better chakra control than Sakura, based on the statement I said earlier, saying that the Byakugan is required to do the level of chakra control she has on her Gentle Step Twin Lion Fist. And it brings up that it's hard to do because of the chakra control, which the Byakugan helps with. Again, just a maybe thing, but I think it's an implication, so we can move on. Now that all of that is out of the way, we can actually get into the power scaling of the fight and the different fights at hand. Like I said earlier, AP scaling for Hinata is virtually irrelevant, but I do want to add that at least at the point of the 4th war, Sakura is likely gonna body Hinata badly. If we look at some of Hinata's best speed feats in the war, most of them are done while she's being amped by Naruto's Kyuubi chakra. Before that, all she does is help Ino mind control Obito and react to the Jubi's wood style jutsu, which literally everyone was doing. And the only statement for her is that her Byakugan is in no way inferior to Neji's, which also doesn't help us in this specific battle. Meanwhile, Byakugo Awakened Sakura is scaling to KCM1 Naruto and EMS Sasuke. A lot of people took this as a joke, and it was a big meme for a while that her saying she caught up to them was just a joke, but this isn't a joke, it's true. It even gets confirmed in the data book. Their speed is also fairly comparable, seeing as Sakura, Naruto, and Sasuke all summon at the exact same time, which means that, they would have to slam their palm on the ground at the exact same time and whatnot. Sakura being as fast as KCM1 Naruto kinda just dunks on anything Hinata has. Hinata, like the rest of the alliance, was all getting protected by this form of Naruto, who was reacting to everything for them and manipulating the chakra cloaks he gave them to repel attacks, so on and so forth. Hinata would likely get ran up on and two-shot. You also even sort of get this feeling when you watch what I like to call the Konoha 11 show-off team. The Konoha 11 start attacking the Jubi clones and they all win in some way or another. Kiba does his big dog attack or whatever, Shino overloads one with bugs, Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji do some weird yo-yo attack, Naruto and Sasuke have their Rasen Shuriken and Amaterasu stuff, and then you have Sakura and Hinata, where Hinata has to overcome her limits to take out one Jubi clone with 64 palms, and meanwhile, Sakura is making literal mountain-sized explosions with her punches. And no, these aren't little rocks on the page here where she punched. Those are Jubi clones getting dwarfed by the explosion size. So ending it here with the 4th war, Sakura beats down Hinata, Sakura W. I think it's important, however, before we continue, to talk about Sakura comparing to Kaguya, and I've been very vocal about this in the past. I don't think Sakura scales to Kaguya. I mentioned it in the tier list video I did with Swag, but I might as well reiterate here so everyone can understand the mindset I'll be operating under for the rest of the battle, since this is a heavy point of contention. Let's look at some of the surrounding context before we get directly into the punch on Kaguya's head. Sakura earlier on, in full 100 healings mode, was stabbed in the torso in no diff by Madara. And not full power Madara, this is just 2 Rinnegan Madara. This feat is important because it establishes that Sakura is weaker than Madara when she's at full power. But just put a pin in this, I have to bring up something else from this time in the data book for the last. It mentions Sakura in the moment she rushed towards Madara while not being inferior to Naruto or Sasuke. This statement is why context is important. Just prior to this scene, Sakura was behind them, about to faint at Madara's sheer presence. Kakashi picks up on this and says he can't blame her given the power of Madara's eyes. Sakura also got scared seeing one-eyed Madara in the Kamui dimension that she literally forgot to breathe. But Sakura is stepping back, then she remembers what she said earlier, which she envisioned herself behind Naruto and Sasuke again, then she rushed forward trying to be a diversion. This statement, with all the surrounding context, is likely talking about Sakura not being inferior to them in terms of her resolve. She's willing to fight Madara now, and she's also talking about being a diversion for them. If she was just as strong as them, why not just fight with them or something? I don't know. Again, context is very important. So now that we've established full power Sakura is weaker than Madara, let's move on to the next piece of evidence, that being why she doesn't scale to Naruto or Sasuke. When under his Susanoo, Sasuke just straight up calls Sakura and Kakashi equally as useless, which they are. They literally can't fight the people him and Naruto are fighting. So where does that leave Sakura? Right back where she was before, at KCM1 Naruto and EMS Sasuke level. Going into the Kaguya thing, when Kaguya spawns, she is obviously much stronger than Madara. I'm not going to go in depth on this at all here. It's 2022. If you still think Madara is stronger than Kaguya, I don't care at all. Anyway, Kaguya is stronger than Madara, and we know Kaguya wants all the chakra in the world when she shows up. And when she first shows up, she walks right past Sakura and does not even acknowledge her presence. In fact, she never acknowledges Sakura's presence at all until that last hit, which is why Sakura says in her head, "Don't forget about me, I'm a woman too," or whatever. Also, before this, Sakura almost got caught by an unstable Jubi mindless Kaguya hand, and when Kaguya gets put all together and stabilizes, Zetsu comments on how she got exponentially stronger, so that's another reason Kaguya should be over Sakura. Now, to talk about the actual punch, what do I think happened here? I realistically think Sakura maybe got a crazy mental amp and she was able to just land that hit and damage Kaguya, or Kaguya was just not paying attention and was super off guard and Sakura landed a hit because of that. I mean, like I said, she doesn't acknowledge Sakura's presence at all until this moment, so yeah. Keep in mind, Sakura is doing this in base form, where she got negged by Madara in full Byakugo mode. I think that heavily lends credence to the things I mentioned just a second ago, where she doesn't scale to Kaguya. It was just sort of a lucky punch or spur of the moment amp. There is one more databook statement from databook 4 here to go over. That being, Sakura will quote unquote never fall behind even when working in collaboration with the two of them. The scene it points to is where she punched Kaguya, where she was heavily aided by Kakashi for the positioning and Naruto and Sasuke for the distraction beneath Kaguya. So this doesn't mean she scales to them, just that she can be integral to a plan. Anyway, okay, so now that Sakura does not scale to Kaguya, 6 Passage Naruto, or Rinnegan Sasuke, cool, we can move on.
Yeah, I would also argue that bizarre event, right, with Sakura hitting Kaguya was so bizarre, in fact, that you could argue it's a plot device for an aesthetically pleasing and plot convenient outcome. I mean, Six made a good point. Full power Sakura got no diffed by 2 Rinnegan Madara, right? Kaguya, the one that she punched, was exponentially times stronger than her previous self, who Sasuke stated was stronger by quite a large margin in comparison to Madara. So the power cliffing is insane, right? The gap in power between a Madara that no diff Sakura, a full power Sakura, and the Sakura that punched Kaguya in the back of the head. From all those events, the most rational conclusion that you can extrapolate is it is simply a plot device, and or Kishimoto gave Sakura such a mental amp that it was able to tag Kaguya Otsutsuki. Right, those are like the only reasonable conclusions that you can come up with, because it's clearly damn near an inconsistency power scaling wise. If someone that much more powerful gets clipped by someone who got no diffed at full power, it's quite bizarre. But again, I would argue it's a plot device for an aesthetically pleasing moment and a convenient outcome. Because Six is right, context matters. And events prior to that matters as well to establish a consistent power scaling basis. But let's continue on.
On to the next section of Sakura versus Hinata. This part is going to be covering them in the last. I'm going to be taking them at their strongest here because at the beginning of the last, neither of them really do anything. And I think a lot more people care about the battle whenever it's after Hinata gets Hamura's chakra. There is really only one way to compare the two of them at this point, and I think it's an interesting one. I'll tell you how I draw my conclusion. You can just comment on it and tell me how you think I did. In the movie, Naruto gets a lot of his chakra knocked out of his body by Toneri whenever Toneri leaves with Hinata. The only person there to heal him, obviously, is Sakura. And to restore Naruto's chakra, it took Sakura 3 full days. Toneri does this yet again to Naruto towards the climax of the fight, but this time Naruto is in full KCM Sage Mode cloak, and it gets ripped right off of him, and he's starting to kneel. And Hinata puts her hand on Naruto and fills him back up with chakra in a matter of seconds. I take this as Hinata just being way superior to Sakura in terms of virtually everything pertaining to chakra. That being control, since she was able to control such a large volume of it, speed, since she did it so quickly, and probably chakra volume as well, since she was just standing there fine after this happened. So what could this actually mean for a fight? I think if Hinata can move her chakra this fast, she should also be able to move faster than Sakura and hit her with numerous attacks she has that can bypass Sakura's durability or drain her chakra. There's also the fact that she has air palms, which she can literally use to output her chakra super fast. So even if Sakura is long range, Hinata should still be able to hit her with one of those. Then outside of that, there's really nothing for them in this movie. There is this one data book statement for Sakura, which I guess I can just really quickly debunk. This is from the last data book, and I'm going to debunk it in two ways. One in which I'll ignore the surrounding context, then I'll do one where I include it. So this is how the statement reads. She cast aside her weakness, and she became a stronger self. Sakura threw herself into severe training in order to catch up with Naruto and Sasuke. This does not mean she is as strong as the two of them. All this does is list the goal of her training and why she was training, which is to catch up to these two. To say it's listing the results of her training is just disingenuous. And again, if you want to go the skeptic route, it sort of just leaves you in the limbo of we don't know which one it's referring to, which is still bad for you if you're saying she does scale to them because you admit you can't prove it. But that's ignoring the surrounding context. Now let's read the statement in full. She cast aside her weakness and she became a stronger self. Sakura threw herself into severe training in order to catch up to Naruto and Sasuke. By means of accurate chakra control she possessed by birth, she mastered medical ninjutsu. She made her talent bloom very fast, and when she stood side by side with the two of them she had been following, her true strength was in fullness of bloom like a cherry blossom. When reading it this way, you get the heavy impression it's talking about the past, and it talks about how she mastered medical ninjutsu, which she did in Shippuden. It talks about how she stood side by side with Naruto and Sasuke, and her true strength blossomed. She never did that in the last. In fact, she never even sees Sasuke in this movie, and neither does Naruto, so it's probably just talking about the earlier instance where she was standing next to KCM1 Naruto and EMS Sasuke, like I mentioned earlier. So once again, no, Sakura does not scale to Naruto and Sasuke. I
agree.
I said I'd cover
It doesn't
adult
explicitly
Sakura
state that,
versus
so
adult Hinata,
there's no way to prove it,
but this
right?
is mostly just going to be me telling you why it's a stupid debate in the first place. They are both housewives now with children. Sakura fights Shin and then starts getting folded, but if you put Hinata in Shin's position, and let's just say for the sake of the argument, she scales to Shin in speed, Sakura would get completely fondled because of the gentle fist. And with Hinata, all she's done so far in Boruto is get folded by base Momoshiki and Kinshiki, both people that Sakura doesn't scale to either. So if anything, you could just imply the scaling from the last movie should still stand and Sakura still loses, but that's not really concrete either, as we don't know what their lives have looked like over the past 14 years after that movie took place. Anyway, I hope I helped some of you with this video. It was kind of out of the blue. I didn't expect to make it at all. And I hope the people of Twitter stop arguing about this dumb topic. If you did enjoy the video, leave a like on it and consider subscribing. Both help the
Good
channel
video as
out
always, Six. Good video.
and I would definitely appreciate it. But as always, have a nice day.
Alright, that's the end of it. I definitely want to get my two thoughts on the video. Now, I agree with Six. Sakura and Hinata's level are ambiguous, right? But there is a feat that I forgot about, admittedly, which was her gaining Hamura's chakra in the last movie. I always forget about that movie and the fact that it's canon. So that is a feat, I guess you could say, to some extent. And she has that chakra. She was able to help Naruto recuperate in mere seconds or minutes, whatever the exact time frame was, but that is still impressive nonetheless. Sakura doesn't really have any feats at all in Boruto. It is implied that she got stronger. That is a fact. However, it's not stated exactly how much stronger she's become. I would agree with Six that she is not on the same level as Naruto and Sasuke, because if that were the case and Kishimoto really wanted to make that a point of reference, he would have had her help them in the Momoshiki fight and in other fights as well, if she really was on that level. But that never takes place, so all you could do is assume. and speculate, which doesn't concretely prove anything, to be quite honest. So I agree, she's definitely not on their level. Obviously, Hinata is not as well. She's not on that level as well because, again, if that were the case, Kishimoto would make that a point of reference and have her help in other fights. And she gets folded by base Momoshiki, like Six said. So it's ambiguous where their levels are exactly. To counter what Six said, I guess you could use the Shin feat a little more and say, well, he was able to clip Naruto and Sasuke, right? And Naruto and Sasuke, though, I would argue weren't going all out, and two, weren't taking Shin very seriously, I would argue as well. I mean, you could simply use a previous feat of Naruto where he tanks one of Shin's kids or whatever, clones, attacks, just because he knows he's superior to him. So I would argue they weren't taking Shin seriously, and two, they weren't going all out. So that would explain why Sakura did seemingly better against Shin than they did. However, it's still Naruto and Sasuke, and they still were clipped, which is very, very difficult to do. I mean, we even seen fucking Karma's Boruto not able to affect Naruto, or Karma Kawaki for that matter, right? While Shin was able to do something at least to Naruto and Sasuke. So from that, you could maybe argue maybe Sakura is on another level that although ambiguous, is a considerable level of power. You could argue that, but then again, it's ambiguous exactly where they are anyway. It's ambiguous. To me, it seems like a toss-up between Hinata and Sakura, right? But Hinata's abilities in particular are troublesome. If they are relative at all, Hinata will win because of her gentle fist. He'll shut down Sakura's network. And she has air palms, like Six said, so she can fight in a long-distance manner, right? So it really comes down to the gap in power, which is ambiguous. We can never really figure out. But yeah, this was an interesting video. He didn't go over part 1, but I do think Hinata in part 1 would win. I'm talking about Chunin Exam Hinata and Chunin Exam Sakura. She just has a superior feat. Sakura stalemated Ino, which was pathetic. Hinata was able to at least contend with Neji after being mentally amped by Naruto. So I think most people are going to agree that's a more impressive feat than Sakura's pathetic feat against Ino. And I do agree basically completely with the war arc assessment. Sakura was able to keep up with Naruto and Sasuke in the war arc. Hinata needed Naruto's help with his chakra, so it just clear as day who would win that one, right? And their feats clearly show who is superior in that instance. But yeah, this was a good video. It gave a good explanation to what most likely would happen in these various scenarios and with these various versions of these respective characters. And that's my thoughts on the video as well. So let me know your thoughts on this specific matchup. I know there are many takes on it. Some people really do revere the Kaguya feat. Some people don't. Some people have Sakura at a whole different level in Boruto and say that she would fold Hinata. So let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. I'm always interested to hear. But that's going to wrap it up, folks, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's Jittery signing out. Peace.